Hello, lovely podcast people. Today's podcast episode is literally an Instagram DM I got 17 minutes ago. And it's just given me an idea to speak. And recently, for your own interest, that you're probably not interested in at all, I've been doing what I sort of told myself I wouldn't, putting too much pressure on myself to do the podcasts to too much of a high level. I've mentioned this elsewhere about being a bit of a perfectionist. I always want to do stuff well. But the problem is very often, lots of you can understand this. And in fact, this is crazy. This is mental, right? Doing stuff well. Paralysis by analysis. Paralysis by analysis. Last night, the podcast I was going to record today was actually to do with habits and routine, and maybe you'll get that next week now. How funny. But it's the same thing with myself is, doing something that's maybe 80% of optimal, or even 50% of what you might deem as optimal, that you can stick to, is far better than making a plan that's perfect and optimal that you simply cannot stick to and you don't stick to. So it's the thing with me is I know eventually this podcast will fizzle out if I add too much pressure to myself. Realistically, it's a bit of a passion project. It's it's not my job. I have plenty of other jobs to be doing. So anyway, I'm putting that pressure on myself. It's causing stress. I'm, thinking, I'll just go and do a little quick search of the literature, see if there's anything else I can add in here that's sort of more up to date than what I've most recently read, rather than just, which never really changes what I'm going to say. It's just like, here's an interesting tidbit. Have I said this before? Titbit? Which is it? Should we ask Alexa? Alexa, what is a tidbit?
The noun tidbit can have a couple meanings. One, a delicate bit or morsel of food. 2, a choice or pleasing bit of anything, as news or gossip.
Here's a tidbit of information. So it's not titbit. I do actually think I used to call it titbit. It's dropping the T's, isn't it? A glottal stop, that's called, when people go tit. You've got nice... No, right, we'll stop there. Glottal stop when you drop the T. So, where was I? Today's podcast, I got a message from someone saying, my husband is tired and bloated all the time, and we have sent off some of his hair for analysis. And I've watched your highlight on your Instagram where you talk about food intolerance testing. It's come back and told him he's intolerant to dairy and gluten, obviously, because that is literally every test. And this week we're getting my podcast up on YouTube. I know this is probably completely out of whack, but do I have... Oh yeah, so I've got this... I don't know why it's down there. I don't think that's where it's lived. Those of you who are on the video, this horrific little food intolerance testing kit I've got in the background here. It's what I did my industry-funded research on, which means I know a fair amount about the area and how this shizzle works. Understandably, there are some difference between the enzyme-linked immunoassays that I was using for food intolerance testing and the hair mineral analysis intolerance testing crap. That and actually the hair stuff I would say is worse than what I did. Mine doesn't show anything, IgG testing. Anyway, I'm going off topic now. Point being, she said that. She said, is it a complete waste of time and money? I said, I'm really sorry to be the one to tell you this, but yes, it is. And there's not really a lot else. I then was like, what else shall I tell her? Shall I, I've got many thousands of followers, not millions, not hundreds of thousands, but many thousands of followers. And I do get many thousands of DMs. And it's that problem of trying to save everyone and wanting to help everyone. I don't have enough time in my day. And I feel like that's why something like the podcast, and why that's exactly why I'm doing this, because I feel like if people are self-motivated, they can come along and listen to this and help themselves with evidence-based information, with, I hope, useful stuff. The problem in this scenario is tired. Like, how many dozens and dozens of things could be leading to the fact that he's feeling tired? He's tired all the time. It could be something down to, that you go to the doctor, I'm tired, especially if you're female. More often than not, they'll test you for anemia. And fantastic in a way if it comes back, oh, your iron levels are low. Take this supplement, change your diet slightly, pay attention to that. Fantastic, you're fixed. Very often you come back not anemic. So where do we go next? And the second really easy one, I had this amazing instance when I was a practitioner, quite young, and I did a lot of work I worked for England water polo, and GB water polo actually, England swimming. I was the kind of lead nutritionist for the entire England talent development program for nutrition. Anyway, these kids train indoors for 2 to 4 hours a day. They're up before the sun rises, no matter what time of year. They're in the pool. They never get sun. And so they are a particularly interesting athletic population. And there's some really cool studies on them with regards to vitamin D. And one instance, I would also do parents talks, because obviously at that age, getting buy-in from the parents and educating the parents is huge. It's almost more important in many ways. And I spoke a little bit about vitamin D. And 2 years later, I was doing another talk in another place for another program, and a guy came up to me and he was like, Martin, you did this talk 2 years ago, and I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. You mentioned some stuff about vitamin D. Our son was going through all this testing. He was falling asleep in school. Obviously, with swimmers, they're up early. They're not necessarily sleeping as much. They're overtraining, etc., under-eating. Tested him for anemia, nothing. And the dad was able to say to their club's nutritionist, could we get him tested for vitamin D? Because this guy mentioned it. They got it tested, and it was low, really low. And he was falling asleep in class, just wasn't himself, had no energy, had no vigor for life. It was crap. And they started supplementing at an incredibly low level, like a level I'd be like, what's the flipping point? But this kind of shows how low his levels were. Or not what's the point, but it was like probably a quarter of the decent corrective dose that I would maybe have recommended. But sure enough, it changed his life, changed him as a person. It was a game changer. And it was really emotional to be told. It was lovely. Anyway, my point being is you could then get your vitamin D levels tested. And it's a huge one for so many different people. And you can almost, if any of you see my stuff online, it's like, I'm a bit of a sun worshipper. If the sun's out, I want to go out in the sun and I want to take my top off, and, Billy and Sarah always laugh at me. They're like, you're so British. And I'm like, well, I'm not really. I was born in Kenya, for goodness sakes. But I'm just not particularly embarrassed about taking my top off. And it's nothing to about being in good or bad shape or being around people or not. It's just like, I think it's just something my mum encouraged as a kid. Like, as soon as it was sunny, she was like, take your t-shirt off and go run outside. And I'm a sun worshipper, basically. And my levels, and I occasionally supplement vitamin D as well, but I'm very bad with routine and I always forget. But anyway, my levels came out suboptimal despite my habits and my supplementation and this, that and the other. and I get outside. Anyway, people are always indoors and not going on holiday. And, I don't wear loads of sun cream on holiday because I want to create some vitamin D. So I kind of try and practice healthy practices. Anyway, my point being, it's a big one. And what we know about different populations, Australia, Ireland, there's loads of research on, cross-sectional research on populations in Ireland, Republic of Ireland, and everyone's deficient, as you can imagine. Anyway, I'm going off topic, but again, I just hope I don't really feel like I can shout about vitamin D enough, just given what the modern lifestyle leads to with regards to vitamin D and how powerful vitamin D is and how multifactorial its roles in the body are. Like, it's not just bone health, it's also immune function. But on top of that, it's also musculoskeletal, the whole muscle contractions. There's vitamin D receptors on muscle tissue. There's vitamin D receptors on many of our different organs. Vitamin D plays a role in fat loss. Vitamin D and insulin resistance seems to be a thing. So again, in populations with dark skin, certain ethnic groups or religious groups who cover their skin up a lot and also have dark skin, and then are these groups that are getting hit particularly hard with type 2 diabetes or insulin resistance, pre-diabetes, vitamin D might be a factor within all of that. There's a greater prevalence, if I didn't say that, in those groups, and maybe this is one of those reasons. Anyway, vitamin D. But tiredness, the kind of point of this podcast was not to go through a loads of different things to help people diagnose themselves. The point I wanted to make in this podcast is being true to yourself, being honest with yourself, and doing the basics, being honest with yourselves. Have I honestly nailed the basics? I feel tired. You say to a kid, I actually said this to Orly's because a couple of years ago when she was littler, someone had asked, I'm tired all the time, what should I do? Or something. I said, Orly, what do you think? If someone's tired, what they should do? And she was like, have a nap. And recently a couple of friends, I've been really on at them about their sleep. I mean, I'm terrible with my sleep, but I cope. It doesn't affect my life, and they are really struggling. And so I'm talking to them about sleep hygiene and different things they could do, and talking about healthy napping habits being a really, really good thing to get yourself back on kilter. But anyway, are you genuinely getting enough sleep? Oh, I get 6 hours a night. It's not enough. We know it's not enough. You know it's not enough. So why are you trying to find something else to fix your tiredness? Why are you trying to find a food to cut out to fix your tiredness or whatever? And I am focusing on the tiredness thing a little bit because, and probably, this is a complete guess, but this guy's maybe more interested in his bloatedness. I don't know. But yes, sometimes it'll be a case, I'm not changing my lifestyle. I like the way, how busy I am, what time I get up, what time I go to bed, what that means I can do before bed, etc., after work. So then you might need to look into assistant aids, like caffeine, for instance, but also maximizing sleep quality in these short hours that you get, for instance. There's different things you can do, but bearing in mind, you're always going to be running on slightly suboptimal if you don't do the basics well. Enough rest, enough recuperation, enough relaxation, enough sleep, enough quality sleep. Again, so understanding with sleep, alcohol can help you with I say help, but sometimes people fall to sleep quicker when they have alcohol, but the quality of the sleep is then reduced, and therefore it's not serving them better, but they're using that to help them get to sleep, for instance. So again, another tidbit for you in terms of you as a general population or you as a coach to have these discussions. Likewise, moderating caffeine intake, pushing it earlier in the day, understanding that the half-life of caffeine is 4 to 6 hours. So if you have, I've got my can of Monster here, don't know what time of day it is, it's about midday, but understanding there's 150 milligrams of caffeine within that can, which is a lot, give or take a lot, it's going to keep people up. But you have people going to work and then training after work at 6-7 p.m. We had so many of these clients in our consultancy going, I'm taking a pre-workout, 200 milligrams of caffeine an hour before the gym. I train at 7, I'm having that at 6. Well, understanding that's 200 milligrams of caffeine, 4 to 6 hours later, you still have half of that left in your system. So you still have 100 milligrams of caffeine, which is like maybe 1 to 1.5 shots of espresso in your system. And you're like, I can't sleep. I wonder why. So, it's recognizing some of those things and adapting your lifestyle somehow so that you can do that to improve your sleep. Anyway, the thing I'm just going to finish with is then the bloating side of the scenario, because it's where my mind went to help this person. What can I do to help this person in this scenario? Now, bloating, again, similar to tiredness, but it's such a broad spectrum symptom. I don't know if that's a good term I'm using there, to be honest, but it can be caused by a number of different things. I'll go to the most wacky one, stress. We had one client who it was a bit of a paradigm shift for me, to be honest, with just we did all sorts with her. We really, really helped her. And but one of the probably 4 major interventions that we did with her was relaxation techniques, stress management techniques. And hers wasn't just bloating, it was like quite acute gastrointestinal pain. But yeah, the stress reducing techniques had this profound effect, and I was like, WTF, why can't life be more simple? Why can't humans be more simple? Why can't physiology be more simple? This is too complicated. But obviously that's me then going, I'm going to have to try and understand all of this because I'm like that. But from a coach's perspective or as an individual, again, just simply knowing, listening to this podcast and going, oh my goodness, really, stress can do that. Well, I'm incredibly stressed at the minute. And yes, I am getting more bloating and this, that, and the other. And even just that, recognizing that fact can be stress relieving in and of itself, that it's normal. Sometimes knowing that your reaction is normal is actually quite a comfort, or that you're not alone and you're not weird and it's not something odd, particularly odd, it's normal, can be really helpful. So bloating, it's like, what can you do if you have bloating? Well, you can go and have a little read about. The problem is the internet, it's whack, isn't it? You just get all this thing. But the long and short of it is, go back to like grandmother, great-grandmother, grandfather, whatever. It's essentially being present with your food, not eating completely erratically, and just a consideration of basically a food diary, a symptom diary when I eat this food. Now, I do also understand that sometimes you will have done this and you just can't get any hold on it. And that was the same for this girl. And one of the issues was that stress was just basically muddying the entire landscape. So she had no clue which food it was, because sometimes she hadn't had a trigger food, but then she had the intestinal pain. But then that was caused by the stress. But being present with it and being slow with it and not trying to get quick fix answers and looking to non-evidence-based practices, which just further muddy the waters for you, because you cut out a load of foods, you eat a lot less, and straight away your stomach is less distended at the end of the day. A calorie deficit, an energy reduced diet, a reduced volume diet will make you less bloated more often than not, simply through food in your intestinal tract. I saw this girl the other day. I don't know where she popped up, on my Explore page or somewhere on Instagram, but she just did like, this is me when I wake up, this is me at lunch, this is me in the afternoon, this is me before bed, like after this many meals, and just looking at how her tummy changed in visual appearance. And yeah, by the end of the day, she her tummy was sticking out a lot more. I didn't read the caption whether she gets bloated or if she was just saying like it is normal. And it is. That's the thing. You wake up and you have nothing, have less in your belly, stuff's being digested. You're going to have a more flat tummy. So, bloating is tricky. But the best thing you can do is get a practitioner, a qualified practitioner to work with. If you have been to the doctor and you've been diagnosed with IBS, which is a tricky one, because sometimes, I would say more often than not, it's almost a diagnosis of exclusion. Like, we don't know what else is wrong with you, so therefore you have this. And it's a teeny bit of a death sentence. But now we have really good there's lots of good dietitians who have started specializing this, and can help you work through the process. Now, understandably, there is an issue there with financial resources, and that's always one of my people are like, go to the doctor, and it's like, well, the doctor's a moron. Go and see a dietitian. What dietitian? Where? How much are they going to cost me, etc.? It's a bit of an issue, isn't it? It's one of the big issues with the kind of dietetics mafia, more the dietetics association. They're like, oh, you should work with a dietitian. It's like, there aren't enough qualified dietitians in the UK to work with, for a start, to help with all of the people that need help. And this kind of horizontal aggression against anyone who tries to talk about anything nutrition other than them. And it's just not helpful. It's just not a helpful endeavour, this horizontal aggression. Rather than, let's get rid of all the completely unqualified people who are hurting people, damaging people, lying to people, rather than, you're not a dietitian, you should stop saying that, even when the information is correct. Anyway, so yeah, IBS, bloating, this, that and the other. I'm tentative to mention FODMAPs. FODMAPs is this area, whenever I mention it or I teach about it, people almost jump to it as the be-all and end-all. And so I'm really, I try to be careful to almost preface it with this, of like, FODMAPs aren't always the answer. A low FODMAP diet isn't necessarily the answer you should jump to. It isn't necessarily the first line, but it is a really helpful thing to be aware of, because it can literally be the first line when you talk to people about what you're consuming. And FODMAPs are fermentable carbohydrates. So fructo, oligo, di, mono, and polysaccharides. And they are these, polyols. And they're all these different fermentable carbohydrates that fermentable, essentially, they are gas forming. And there's another, someone else calls it something else. Low. Can't remember. Anyway. But by consuming less of these, so you get people who are like, I wake up in the morning and I have a strong coffee and a low-carb protein bar, and I'm running straight to the toilet. And it's like, wow, you're consuming a boatload of caffeine, which we know is a gut irritant. It will literally cause that effect of running to the toilet very often. And you're consuming it with a load of these polyols or sugar alcohols, or these things that, again, we know are gas forming, have laxative effects. It's a bit like with a pack of chewing gum. If you look at a pack of chewing gum, it says, don't eat the whole packet because it may cause laxative effects. These are these substances. So, but likewise, there are loads of different completely normal, I'm going to call them more easily visible, fruits and vegetables that have these fermentable carbohydrates in them. And different people may react differently to different ones. So sometimes just being able to, I'm pretty sure on macnutrition.com we have a low FODMAP list, a low FODMAP or a FODMAP list that you can just go have a look. It's a little PDF just for your own knowledge to go, oh, these are the foods. Oh my goodness, I consume loads of onions or whatever. And, just gives you a bit more of an idea, or a bit more of some direction of where to look with regards to, say, a personal food diary and symptom diary. Yeah, so, and then I guess the final point that I just wanted to mention is, he's always bloated. Talking about this husband again. He's always bloated. And going, how good in general is his diet? Because we know, again, just generally eating a healthier diet. Healthier diet is a bit of a pointless term these days because there's so many different ideologies of what health is out there. But I think what most people, if you go to every single realm of craziness, I know carnivore diet's kind of really thrown a bit of you can't eat any fiber because it's bad for you and it'll scratch your intestines and whatever, like no carbs, no nothing, only meat, we are lions. Just, it's absurd, isn't it? But most realms, it's like the general healthy diet. It's at least fruits and vegetables, right? They are sort of within most of some of the low carb realms. Obviously, fruits not so much in keto-esque programs, but nuts, even in paleo realms, it's like, well, you can have some potato, can't you? And you can have some nuts and berries and fruit and vegetables and meats and whatever. But then, when I say healthy, I'm talking about what I'd roughly deem as the Mediterranean type diet that is discussed. It's just all single ingredient foods. It's like adding into the paleo lifestyle the fact that you can have some rice and you can have some oats and you can have some, what else don't they allow you to have? Dairy, cheese. And it's more getting away from these highly processed foods. This is what all of the diet methods, what do they all cut out? They're hugely processed, artificial, man-made food products that we eat lots of them, and they can lead us to feeling a certain way and not great digestively. So have you gone and done the basics on that, for instance? I'm going to leave it there. I've kind of meandered all over the shop, haven't I? Maybe I will literally just call this podcast What to Do If You're Feeling Tired and Bloated. And because I think there's lots of learning that's come out of this podcast that would be helpful for anyone. Coaches, general population, dealing with these things. Some things for you to think about, delve into further. Cool. Hope you've enjoyed it. Until next time, much love.